We have also agreed on the statement of issues that we shall be deliberating on as a dialogue committee or as a national dialogue committee. We have also resolved that we shall be extending invitations to stakeholders and members of the public to present their memorandums to the committee.
Wahenga ndio alisema ukiona vyaelea ujue vimeundwa. So a lot of work has been done. Ndio sasa vitu vimeanza kuelea. And we want to encourage Kenyans to continue to have faith in this team.
And so the national dialogue is finally off to a start with the issues having been crystallized. Sam, we now know what, sometimes I'm tempted to say we, but I'm not so sure it's we, but we now know what they will be talking about. Because I'm not so sure it's one of, well, anyway. The debate about how national it is and how inclusive it is one thing, but now we know what they will be talking about for the next 60 days.
Right, and it's a couple of things. But again, remember we've been talking about the varying agenda of Kenya Kwanza versus Azimio. And the leaders in Kenya Kwanza have been chest thumping and saying that we are not going to speak about cost of living. It is on the agenda. And saying that we're only going to talk about the IBC, position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, position of the official leader of opposition. Everything Azimio proposed is on the agenda. Everything Kenya Kwanza proposed is on the agenda.
So why did it take us so long to get here? We just...
I don't have the answer to that. But actually, there's just two things that have been added to that. Remember, initially it was entrenching the NGCDF into the Constitution. Now they have two funds that are also being proposed for entrenchment. That is the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, that is the one that is administered under the watch of the Woman Representative, and the Senate Oversight Fund. This is what had been promised by President Ruto to Parliament, I believe, at the end of September last year as he was opening it. So if you look at it, I mean, it's a combination of everything that has been spoken about by the two sides. Now, my only question is how they're going to pursue this, because, for instance, on the cost of living, they have broadened it to mean Article 43 of the Constitution, the cost of living and related issues. It is an outstanding constitutional matter. I don't know if Bobby agrees whether it is, but also, secondly, if the proposal is to introduce the position of official leader of the opposition and to entrench the position of the Prime Cabinet Secretary in the Constitution. Are these two things requiring of a constitutional amendment, and how so? Because there are only two ways, the parliamentary initiative and the popular initiative. What is Ishungwa and Kalonzo Musyoka chairing?
Well, I go back to what I said earlier. Regardless of the route, because the route could be, yes, the Constitution says, and I'll always like also reminding Kenyans that we as Kenyans, we did not say in Article 255 the litany of 10 issues. We did not use the term articles. So it doesn't say amendment of these articles. It says amendment of these issues, which are 10, that have, regardless of the path you use, parliament or popular initiative, at the end of the day, Mwananchi has to decide through a referendum. And so that's why you find that when you synthesize a lot of the proposals, for instance, leader of opposition, which one, you may wonder, the leader of opposition with uppercase L and uppercase O, institutional office, is resident in parliamentary systems, where government is founded and operates from Parliament. So in our case, you'll want where government is outside Parliament. And if the proposal is, as was in BBI, that the leader of opposition will be the runner-up of the presidential election, which to me, I thought then that means it's just a consolation prize for the loser of the presidential election. But again, the second limb of it will sit in Parliament and lead opposition in parliament, the question becomes opposition to who? Opposition to what? We don't have government in parliament. Government is outside parliament. In parliament, we have parliamentarians, and their formation and how they divide themselves is dependent on the numbers, the majority and the minority. And so we may fall a victim to destabilizing our constitution by bringing patches which eventually will not be to our benefit. And again, we have to ask ourselves, do we want to tinker with the Constitution to deal with current issues? I ask myself whether my son will, because the debate is around accommodating, we create positions to accommodate each other, whether that is the equation, the algorithm, political algorithm that my son will be dealing with in 20 years. So let us not make current situations which can be politically dealt with cause us to tinker with this constitution that we fought very hard for. But at the end of the day, I go back to the question, prove to Kenyans, show Kenyans that this leader of opposition will, to use Maremu Moi's words, Daniel Arap Moi's words, and it's news gang, I think I can do this in a jocular way, to use the words, itaongeza masufuria ya ugali. I keep saying the Constitution is instrumental to not making somebody hold this position, you know, access the state in a self-interested way. Yes, that may be the cause, but it's instrumental to making the lives of Kenyans better. I want it explained to a Kenyan child how the leader of opposition, this position, is going to make education for any Kenyan child better. How it is going to add drugs to our hospitals. How it is going to make our roads better. If I am convinced that this position is going to do that, then I will support it. We have this position, Prime Cabinet Secretary. It's there. So why do we need to tinker with the Constitution? To say to entrench it? Is it what our children will want in the future? It is functioning right now.
Bobby, could it be a case of nostalgia and Kenyans looking at how they functioned pre-2010? And I also don't believe you're saying that everything about pre-2010 was wrong.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about taking government out of parliament, isn't it a failed experiment so far? Because government is in parliament. It's an acrimonious, actually very rough space where the opposition, the majority and the minority still engage in the Westminster style of debate of opposing, proposing, and things like that, whereas you drafters sought to move to the American system. Can we admit, at least in as far as taking government out of parliament, that is a failed experiment?
I wouldn't say it's a failed experiment in the sense that the constitutional design provides it. It is a failed experiment in the sense of those people who are supposed to animate the constitutional text have done so far. And I was saying, I think through this national dialogue, the other thing we need to critically look at is how we politically organize and mobilize. In fact, I don't know whether there is an item on political parties.
Yes, there is.
There is. I think we need to have a robust engagement.
It talks about fidelity to political parties or coalitions and the law on multi-party democracy, preventing interference with political parties and coalitions.
To political parties. Yeah. It's not political organization. I think it should be broadened to political organization. We look at how parties are formed. Why do we have so-called owners of parties? Do we have democracy in the political parties? Because we don't have democracy in our parties, in our outfits, but we want democracy at the national level. You know, so I think sometimes it's you know, there's double standards in some of these speeches and some of part of our conduct. Yeah? So we need to ask ourselves, those we say, and it's funny, fidelity to political parties, which, yes, is substantive in political organization. But why do we want our MPs to be more loyal to the political parties than loyal to the wananchi who elected them to go represent them in parliament? Why aren't the MPs more loyal to the constitution? Or rather more loyal to their political parties and leaders than to the constitution?
Yeah.
They're the ones failing. It's not the constitution. If they wanted to breathe life to the constitution as it is expressed, I think that experiment would now be taking off. But because they are still beholden to pengine ni ule mkono ambao wanaramba, then we say the experiment has failed. We have not even started trying the experiment. We've set it up, but we have not tried. Yeah. Okay.
And it's interesting because even as we close, that what you're saying is for the Constitution, we have built the hardware. So we've got, you know, everything, but it's the software that we're still, you know, yet to get through. And perhaps it would seem to me there is an obsession with legislating everything we have a problem with. So if we don't like this, let's create a law, and then let's fix it, and then the law becomes even more prescriptive, right down to, you know, a value system or something, you know, but I think we just try to legislate around everything, including moral issues, including value issues. And now, not only are we legislating, we're now saying, okay, we want to change the Constitution to fix some of our bad manners. So is this a political issue that we have and we need to sort it out politically, or is it something that, you know, is a constitutional one or a legal one, for that matter, that we want to sort out? And I think those are just my reflections when it comes to this issue, that not everything requires a law.
I agree with what you're saying, Yvonne. In fact, I like saying we are a country that likes casting legislation at every problem.
Because we have failed to be able to solve those issues as, you know, as human beings.
So we use legislation as a scapegoat. And there's nothing wrong. Sometimes, yes, we could, because legislation, constitutional principles, they give us a platform from, you know, and a threshold to work from. So in that sense, that is fine. But in the sense that, oh, we are going to fix this problem, we are going to plug in this problem by enacting a certain law, by tinkering with the Constitution, whereas we have not shown fidelity to the current content, I think will not help us, you know, put the country on the right track. So the national dialogue and other processes that have been proposed, and many others could come, because there is also the question whether the national dialogue has a monopoly. No, it doesn't. You know, Kenyans elsewhere, if they feel they have maarifa that can assist in developing the Constitution, they are free to come out. And I think it's in thrashing out the issues, even the issues that the National Dialogue Committee has put out. It's okay, let's thrash them out. If the synthesis of that discussion, dialogue, gets us to arrive and agree as Kenyans that the solution to this issue is legislation, is a constitutional amendment, it is tubadilishe hulka zetu, then let it be. But we cannot start at the beginning. We
start with the end in mind.
Yeah, we cannot start discussing by saying we are here to hold a national dialogue to change the Constitution. No.
Yeah.
Let's
talk about the problems and see what the solution is.
Because there are many solutions around these issues. They don't have. We have to hold this document sacrosanct, you know. It is not a document to just rush to every day and we are saying using as a scapegoat. Otherwise we lose ourselves as a nation.
Quick one, Bobby, do you see this growing into another Bomas process where at some point we'll see 400, 600 delegates?
Who knows? Who knows? As I was saying, you know, as they thrash out, as it gains traction, the issues come out, we may arrive there, who knows? But let's see what happens.
Yeah, let's indeed see what happens.
I say it's a 13th year, the mythological 13th year. I hope it's lucky, not unlucky 13.
Absolutely. And that begins tomorrow. In fact, the 60-day countdown has already, the clock is already ticking on the 60 days that they've given themselves. But, you know, we get to see the talks happening Friday. I want to thank you, Bobby Mkangi, for being here and for shedding some light. And it's just really interesting to hear what your thoughts are and where this goes. No doubt we'll be speaking to you quite often, considering everything that's happening at this moment in time. Thank you for being a guest gangster tonight. I'm sure you will make it home safe because...
I'm a gangster now.
There you go. Absolutely. So whilst he exits, I want us to shift and talk about something that's